Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider. Today, I'm joined by Sadie Kurzban. Sadie is the founder and CEO of 305 Fitness. On today's episode, we talk to Sadie about her journey from winning a pitch competition to scaling a boutique fitness business, her mission to democratize fitness, and the importance of staying true to who you are. I had a great time chatting with Sadie, and I hope you enjoy listening. Let's get into it. Hi, Sadie. Welcome to Fit Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Great. To kick things off here, can you tell us a little bit about 305 Fitness, how it got started, and what the operation looks like today?
Absolutely. So I started 305 Fitness out of my dorm room, actually. I was teaching these fun fitness classes in college. And at the time, I just really didn't like what other fitness classes were doing. I found that every time I went to a fitness class, I left feeling sort of worse about myself than when I stepped in, because so much of the messaging was around shame and judgment, around whittling waist and 8 weeks till beach body. And it just left a bad taste in my mouth. So I started to teach fitness because I really wanted to create a different message for young women like me. Started teaching these classes on campus and never ever talked about transforming your body or, needing to change in order to be accepted. Just really made them fun. And I focused on dance because I found that dance was so fun and just the kind of thing that gets people that don't feel like fitness is for them to just move and laugh and be silly and connect with their body. So started teaching these dance classes on campus, really amassed this following, started charging $5 at the door with my best friend was a bouncer at the door. We were collecting cash, ones and $5 bills. And in that first semester that I did that, I made $40,000. So that's when I had this kind of aha moment that I realized that this message and this product was really needed and that this could really be a business. So I entered my university's venture pitch competition. It's a startup pitch competition my senior year. I won first place. I took the cash prize plus the money I had been making from operating this pop-up and moved to New York City in 2012. And with that money, I started just by renting from dance studios 1 hour at a time. I called it a pop-up back then. I hired a DJ on Craigslist. I plugged in these lights into the corners of the room and was just creating these this underground and really fun pop-up in New York. Built it from 2 classes a week to 30 classes a week with other trainers. And that's when I decided to raise money and open up our first brick and mortar in New York. So the class is a 45 to 55 minute, basically nonstop cardio experience. It's really, really fun. People call it a workout disguised as a party, a workout disguised as, it's a nightclub out with your friends. It's nonstop music. It's an amazingly good time. You leave drenched in sweat, but most importantly, you really leave with this total endorphin high that I find you don't quite get in other workouts, just because the messaging is so uplifting, so empowering, so positive, and really just about shameless joy as opposed to any kind of shame or judgment. So we have today 6 studio locations across New York, Boston, DC. We also have pop-ups across the country in Chicago, San Francisco, and LA. And we are expanding in smaller markets by licensing instructors that can teach this method out of rented studio space and gyms. So right now we have 6 studios, 3 pop-ups, and 100 certified instructors that are teaching this across the country.
That's incredible. There's so much in there that you kind of gloss over or dance over as you know the story so well, but some of that I want to dig into. It sounds like initially at the onset, it wasn't so much about fitness necessarily. It was about the dance, the experience, the how, you said bringing people joy. When you were doing this back in school and then you won the pitch competition, were you thinking, I want to build this boutique fitness, studio powerhouse? Or was it, I just want to do something that I really enjoy that also brings other people joy?
Yeah, no, I wasn't coming at it like surveying the landscape and realizing that boutique fitness was a thing. In fact, when I was a senior in college, I remember someone said to me, "Do you know about this thing called Physique 57 and Soul Cycle? You should go to make a trip to New York and check that out." So I wasn't someone who was like addicted to boutique fitness that was trying to think of a vertical like dance that could fit in there. I was instead a young woman that really was dissatisfied with the message that we had for customers. 90% of customers in fitness and in boutique fitness are female. And I find that the messaging for it is still so stuck in the past. It's still just so built on judgment and shame and about making women feel like they're not good enough if their bodies don't look a certain way. And coming from a really high pressure environment, I grew up in Miami, that's the 305 area code, where there's lots of expectations on young girls to look a certain way. I, grew up with older sisters. Some of them had life-threatening eating disorder. And I knew I really just wanted to change the conversation because fitness is supposed to be this thing that makes you healthy, and it does. But if mentally the messages you're receiving from your instructor or from yourself while you're working out are, come on, you stupid fat shit, burn those calories, burn off that hamburger from last night. If it's just a message of purging and deprivation and shame, it's not really bringing us any closer to feeling good about ourselves. So that's really where it came from, was just really feeling like I didn't, as a customer, as a young woman, I didn't like the messages that were available to me. And I knew that was a need because females are so, we dominate the consumer landscape in this. So I just really wanted to create a message that was true and authentic from the heart. I wasn't really looking to build a fitness empire.
And then how does that translate to today, where you've very much made the shift while continuing to promote that message and create these experiences for people? And it's so obvious when you look at any of the videos or any of the social media, how much people enjoy it and how excited they are to be there and how they're just beaming during the class and certainly after the class. So you have that component of it that you maintain and that you're, continuing to put at the forefront, but also now you have to run a business. You mentioned having raised money. How do you balance being that brand and that face and that instructor with, hey, I'm also the CEO of a fast growing fitness company?
Well, I think that for us, it's really been about the community. It's not one, it is one and the same. I don't think of myself as this CEO that's like pushing an agenda forward and raising money. I really think of it as we're responding to the community, and what the community continues to tell us is, this is amazing. I would dedicate my life to this. I want to quit my job and work for 305 at half of the salary I can make somewhere else because this means so much to me. Or, this was the first fitness program. This is what we hear. I hear this honestly 10 times a day from different customers saying, I never worked out. I couldn't get anything to stick. And 305 was the one thing that really got me to get off the couch and stick with it for years. So I think that the big thing here is we've done basically zero paid advertising. We've only raised money when we've wanted to expand to a new market. And the only reason that we've ever wanted to expand is because we're inundated with requests from customers. So, I just continue to listen to our customer and really empower, most of our customers are women. So empower her to speak up and to voice. And if she's telling us, you have to build a studio in Chicago, she tells that to us because she's taking class every single day and the classes are sold out. So that's our kind of aha moment that we need to go raise money in order to do that for her. We're not a brand that is top down, that creates products for people that we think that they need, that pumps money into social advertising to try and get people to sell things, to sell and push product. It's not about cross-selling and upselling. It's really just about listening to the customer and creating the product that she has in mind. So I think that's always been our expansion strategy, is keep the ears to the ground and really listen to the customer and let her lead. And if I'm this sort of vessel for that, that's amazing. But I don't think of myself as this like CEO that's like has to balance pushing that forward, because I think that I'm really just her advocate.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think I was reading an interview that you did, or maybe a podcast, and you had mentioned that in growing the company, both with fundraising and expanding into new markets, you were huge on validating what you were doing before you went out and solicited money, and certainly before you expanded into other locations. And it sounds like now the demand is growing so much that people want more and more of 305 Fitness, of you. As that's starting to happen, what are the conversations like now? People want to come and work for you. I'm sure going from a period, and I'm making an assumption here, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but of needing money and not being able to get it, to now probably people approaching you and saying, hey, are you looking for investment? How can we get involved? What does that look like right now in terms of the growth and opportunities?
Well, I do think that's right. I think that we've always been lucky in some ways to be able to hand select our investors. There's definitely a lot of businesses that really pride themselves on raising money and on having high valuations, and that's just not something that we care about or care for. People in the investing world and in finance can create all the noise that they want, but I do believe that the products that are going to win in the end are the ones that customers buy and care about. So I know it's a crazy radical thought, but we've really been super lucky that we've only raised money when it's for expansion. It's never been to, pay ourselves more or to because we have cash burn needs or anything like that. So we've never been in a position where we've needed money. And what that's meant is that we've always been able to find really aligned folks who believe in the mission, who believe in our values, who have donated to campaigns that are in line with what we believe in. So we've definitely thoroughly vetted our investors. And I think that, young customers like me and like you, that's what we want to see too, is in light of everything that's happened with Equinox and Soul Cycle and customers that really felt betrayed by those brands, that they didn't feel like the people at the top they were speaking out of two sides of their mouth, right? One side of their mouth was saying this is lifestyle, we are LGBTQ friendly. We were built on the backs of people of color and minorities and immigrants. And then on the other side of their mouth, they were looking the other way as their major investor was hosting a fundraiser for Trump, who really doesn't stand values. That, customers, I think today more than ever are really valuing high integrity from their brands. They want to make sure that leadership is really holding themselves accountable and is standing for the values that they espouse. And when it comes to fitness, this is a deeply personal choice for people. People are choosing brands now, not because it's the most effective workout in the world, but because they really believe this leadership and this company, the ideas that are backing this company, the core values really matter to me as a consumer. And that means that we have to be aligned in everything we do, in how I look at myself in the mirror, how I sleep all at night, the investors that we put on our team, the people that we choose on our board, the employees that we hire. Everything needs to be really aligned so that it's all going back to the trust that our customers put into us.
Yeah, some excellent points in there. Is that the importance of the brand, the importance of you're talking a lot about the mission and the core values and what that stands for and how it's translated to the customers who, in especially with fitness, they feel a special connection to the workouts, a special connection to you. How much pressure does that put on you to maintain that both personally as the face of the business and also through the brand?
Well, I just tell the truth. I just really try to tell the truth, and I don't feel like that puts pressure on me. I just think it's the right thing to do. I feel very lucky that I didn't ever, I was never taught to really care much about money and didn't get my MBA. And I don't know, maybe just because I hadn't worked for other places, I didn't know that there were rules and ways of sort of being political and all that stuff. So I don't really find that it's pressure. It's just telling the truth and being honest. And, it's not to say that we don't mess up. We're not, but it's just to say that when we do mess up, we tell the truth and we just own it. And we ask our customers to give us some time to rectify. And that's really it. I think brands maybe get caught up in the red tape and in the optics of things. And there's just no need. Just tell the truth.
Yeah, and I'm sure that message of authenticity, of truth, those are the types of things that continue to draw people to you and to 305 and getting those to come through. With that, and you talked about the obviously the business side of things. What does kind of the day in the life of the 305 Fitness CEO look like when you're not teaching classes, when you're not programming classes? What are the things that are happening that might not be obvious from the outside looking in?
Oh, great. Well, I'm quite involved in the operations, not so much day to day, but I meet with people on our team to talk about where we're at with new projects. I'm pretty closely tied with our marketing, with our product, like our instructor training and development, with licensing, how we're certifying instructors. This is something that I'm very involved in. So just like anyone at a job, I'm sort of knee deep in a lot of projects, managing some other folks that are amazing and that are supporting me in getting this done. Some of my day, of course, I spend meeting with folks, raising money, or just networking and meeting other brands or thinking about how collaborations could help us. So just getting out there and learning from people. And then I still do teach. I definitely take class. I take class almost every day. I like to do that, just kind of
reminds me why I'm building this. And even on the hard days is always a nice breath of fresh air. But I would say that I certainly work really hard. Everyone on the team does. We call it team no days off. We work through Saturdays and Sundays and, probably work something between 80 to 100 hours a week every week and have been doing that since I graduated 8 years ago. But I really wouldn't have it any other way. It's just, the challenges are new, they're ever changing. Sometimes they're really frustrating, but there's always growth to be had and a nice celebration to be had. And I work with people who I got to hire all of them. So I like all of them, which makes it also really cool to go to work.
Yeah, it's wild when you start to think about growing it from just you and then bringing folks on board to help with that. And, now supporting an entire team in multiple cities. How did you, for folks listening who are, themselves entrepreneurs and whether they're doing it now or hope to be doing it in the future, how did you build that team? What does it look like to hire folks and maintain that leadership as you grow? It's something that's, certainly I've dealt with and had the ups and downs with, but how do you go about managing the team building aspect of it and building a team that now it sounds like you obviously love to be around and work with, but also, goes out there, no days off and gets stuff done?
Um, how do we go about scaling our culture? Yeah, culture is that's hard. It's hard to articulate sometimes. I think what was really helpful was I just went about doing my thing and I hired a COO who's my best friend and who knows me through and through. And there were certainly some times in the earlier years where we had some disagreements because, when I'm a first time founder. I don't know what the rules are. I don't know what's to be expected. I don't know when you hire someone if, it's hard sometimes to know for me to know, is this what I should be expecting? Or like, is this voice that's nagging me inside actually the truth? And that's always really hard to know because founders are, stereotypically kind of crazy. And we are, right? We do this crazy thing against all odds. And then I have a team of super supportive, empathetic people who sometimes, tell me I'm demanding too much or asking too much from others and I need to sort of slow it down. So I think it's always a balance, I think, of listening to my intuition and knowing when something's off, even though I haven't seen it before in the past, even though I haven't worked anywhere, even though I've never hired for tech or marketing. How can I know what that looks like when I'm not even really totally sure what that really looks like in practice? But I think a lot of it's listening to my intuition, which has gotten us pretty far, and listening to the team that may have some other advice for me or some other perspectives.
Yeah. And I think, potentially without knowing it, you mentioned going back to how you've gone about building the brand itself and how you approach brand building and putting yourself as the front of this company is just tell the truth, just do the right thing, just be authentic, listen, trust your gut. And a lot of those things, it sounds like, have certainly translated to the team building and culture building aspect as well.
Yeah, I think so. In the last year or two, we've gone from 5 or 6 full-time employees to now close to 20. So I think that jump was pretty big. When we had 5 or 6, we all were literally around the same table almost every day. And it was pretty clear what the culture was. It's been recently that we've had to put those into words. And how we did that was, my COO and I just sat down and we went back and forth and tried to really pinpoint what is it about us that is very authentic. And those core values that I've always sort of eye rolled at, when I've heard other companies writing their core values, I'm like, oh, this is so textbook. This is so MBA. This is so stagnant. But actually what I found is that writing those down and really viewing the lens through that, meaning every time we interview someone, actually helps to create a pretty cohesive culture. So the 4 core values that we have at 305, even though had you asked me 2 years ago, I'd be like, we don't have core values. That's ridiculous. I'm telling you them now. One of them is fun, which we say every day is a party, fun. One of them is inclusivity. So that's you do you. One of them is inclusivity is you can sit with us. Self-expression is you do you. And ownership, you can do this. So ownership is like that entrepreneurial thing, that thing that makes you roll up your sleeves, that thing that, when a coworker has an issue, you don't say, oh, that's not my job, that's not my problem. You really own the mistake and you really move forward from there.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that's super helpful like I mentioned, for other folks listening who are going about building their business and trying to figure out how to articulate some of these things, to have that as kind of a framework and the importance of it. You mentioned earlier working on the instructor training, doing the licensing, growing that beyond just the studios. I feel like that's a pretty good segue. How has establishing the core values and the mission translated into the instructor training, and how those folks are teaching and embodying 305 fitness, and kind of what's the state of the instructor training at this point?
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. They are people who apply to become certified. We screen them through video. So it's super cool. It's not just that anyone off the street can become certified. We're really taking the program really seriously. They're our brand ambassadors. So they apply to become certified. We screen them through a video. There's a whole application process. They travel to one of our studios for the weekend and they get awesome, best in class education on how to teach this class. So how to cue, how to pattern form, how to make eye contact, how to listen to music, how to simplify for new dancers, all of that stuff. We also teach them how to market their classes, how to build a following on social media, how to think about pricing their classes. They return home to their markets and they're able to do exactly what I did in college, launch a pop-up. So they can rent from a dance studio for a couple hours a week. They charge $5 or $10, $15, $20 in their market, whatever makes sense. And they are their own entrepreneur. So for most of the people that are doing this right now, they're teaching on average 2 to 3 classes a week. They're charging about $15 a class, and the math is awesome. Like you pay $40 for $40 or $50 to rent from a dance studio, right? You charge $10, you get 20 people in the room, you've made $200 right there. And you get to take home 150 in profit. So it's a really awesome way for us to democratize entrepreneurship. You don't need $1 million to get a business started this way. You can get started with just $500. It's a great way for us to teach young women around the country how to start their own businesses. It's a great way for us to expand 305 and this incredible message, which is really radical in the fitness industry. That's really all about teaching people how to love their bodies and accept where they're at and celebrate life in the moment. So it's a win for everyone. And it's a win for the dance studios that are looking for extra revenue and extra rentals that now have a tenant.
And when did that percolate, the instructor training? You mentioned at the onset, not necessarily wanting to build the multiple studios, multiple locations, bigger business. And then now having done that, now the instructor training is coming. You mentioned 100 folks that are licensed, and I'm sure ambitions for more. When did you look back and say, this is a huge opportunity, or this is something I want to pursue, even if it's just to the end of democratizing fitness, not even for the business opportunity? But when did that come about, and how did it, initially get that traction?
Well, I think that what was happening was we kept scratching our heads to try and figure out how can we get to these smaller markets, because we were looking at our stats in studios and we were finding the number one reason why someone came to a first class and never came back to the studio. They were telling us it's that I live somewhere else. I was visiting New York, I was visiting Boston or DC. I took your class in LA. I loved the class, but then I went back home and there's no 305 here. So we were looking at that. We were looking at how many messages we get all the time from people all around the world, frankly, that were saying, oh my God, please bring 305, please bring a studio here. And we just figured, how are we going to get there? How are we possibly going to get to Minneapolis and Hattiesburg, Mississippi and Orlando, Florida and San Diego and all these places where we were getting serious demand? So the opportunity there was we could do something digital and allow at-home classes. We could franchise it and have people open up these boxes, or we could license it. And why we chose to do licensing was because we really believe in the human-to-human element. Of course, there's a place for at-home and there's totally appetite for it. But fundamentally, I think that it starts with nurturing a relationship face-to-face. And when it came to franchising versus licensing, I didn't like the idea that with franchising, so often you need to find people that have $1 million in the bank. Like that's usually the net worth of people that can open up a franchise, or people who have already had experience opening these things. I wanted to, like I said, democratize it and allow for people that don't have access to capital to really start their own businesses. So those were that's really the main reason, was just that we had all this demand in all of these secondary and tertiary markets. We know that there's not a lot of fitness happening in these markets, definitely not exciting fitness like 305. And how we went about scaling it was, we thought human to human is important, and let's do this the way that can really help democratize the playing field, instead of, of doing it through people who already have the income that can start any franchise, frankly.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to think about focusing on those smaller markets instead of what's typically happens is you have the boutique studios, they raise a ton of money at a pretty absurd valuation, and then go about opening studios in all of the places you would think, New York, LA, San Francisco, etc. And you're looking at it, certainly doing that in terms of what you're doing with the studio business, but saying now we want more people anywhere to experience this, and not being as selective in terms of those cities, and being, completely in control of it, giving it to folks and letting them go about doing it. So I think that's super exciting.
Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of brands in the boutique space are built on the studio experience. They're built on a sense of exclusivity and elitism, and you're part of the club when. And it's this idea that if you pay all of this money to ride the bike or box behind the bag, and what you're paying for isn't just the workout. You're paying for, in those settings, the fluffy towels, the scented candles, the beautiful locker room. You're already walking in probably head to toe in some super expensive workout outfit, and it just becomes like an elitist club. And so that's not what 305 has ever been about. We've happened to be in the big cities, but we've never gone after that demographic. It's never been for us about, that idea of, okay, you're paying a certain price to feel like you're part of the scene. Instead, 305 has always been about getting that person who hates to work out, who just, already feels like the bar is so high, the intimidation factor is so high. 305 is like this paradise for her. She says, oh my God, finally a place where I'm accepted. It has nothing to do with the fluffy towels or, someone at the front desk making you feel like a queen. Instead, it just has to do with an amazing workout, awesome music, an instructor in front of the room who's high energy. So we thought, why can't this live in smaller cities and towns across the US? Why does this have to be in big cities? It doesn't make sense. But I think for other brands, because they're built on that idea of wealth and affluence and elitism and exclusivity and the haves and the have-nots, of course it makes sense that their reach is New York, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, and they would never think about going to Orlando, Florida, or Hattiesburg, Mississippi, because these aren't places where there's enough people who want to feel like they're in the scene. There's other values in our country that are much more about community and about belonging and feeling part of something. And the truth is, everyone needs fitness. Like, fitness and wellness should be democratic. It shouldn't be something that you need to pay an arm and a leg to be part of.
It seems, hearing you say that and the passion that you're speaking about it, it's certainly counterintuitive to what boutique fitness stands for right now. Is that something that you're going to or have a desire to be louder about? And not that you're not now, obviously, speaking out about it here, but is that something that you want to put at the forefront? Or are you more interested in just, hey, we're going to do what we're going to do, and I'm not going to worry about what anybody else is doing?
I think it's the latter. There's definitely contradictions in what we do. In New York, I'm not going to lie, it's a $30 price point. It breaks my heart. We do what we can in our studio markets to make it more affordable, but a lot of it just has to do with the way that we approach it and the things that we value. When you're paying $30 for a class in New York City, what you're paying for is rent, unfortunately. What you're paying for is a living salary for our studio manager, for our instructors and DJs. You're not paying for, I don't know, reinvesting in renovations for the locker room or for the waiting room or anything else that sort of makes you feel like you're part of the club. But any chance that we get to lower the price point, we always gladly do. And we do that during off-peak times. We do tons of community classes where it's donation based, where people can come for $10 or $15. We're always trying to democratize it. I think that is something that we're super passionate about continuing to do. And I think in any area where a studio isn't needed, where an instructor is teaching out of rented space, that's when she or he can really charge $5, $10, $15, something that's a more accessible price point.
Yeah. And I think even the fact that you're, aware of it and making a point to do what you can to address it goes a long way with folks. So I think that's incredible as well. You mentioned in talking about the instructor training, you looked at licensing, franchising, potentially on demand, streaming. With the shift in the industry moving towards like an at home and on demand, do you have plans? Do you have ambitions for doing something that's remote on demand, or is that something you're kind of staying away from for now?
I think it's something that we, again, in the ethos of inclusivity and trying to do this the right way, what we have right now is we have a YouTube channel, and I would recommend anyone check it out. It's free. So we are at home, but we don't have a paywall behind it. So, I'm really excited about that because it's a great way for anyone to be able to now reach our workouts. We're obviously not making any money off of it, but it's just awesome for the community. So definitely check out YouTube 305 Fitness. You'll see we have tons of videos there. There's 5-minute workouts, there's 30-minute workouts. They're so much fun, and we're getting really, really great responses.
That's awesome. And we'll get you out of here on this, actually talking about the instructor training and all the stuff you have going on, the YouTube channel. What do the next couple of years look like? What are you most excited about at 305 Fitness?
Wow. Next couple of years look like more studio expansion across those major markets like we talked about. So we're waiting to see how our pop-ups do in Chicago, LA, San Francisco. We'd love to launch Miami and Atlanta, Austin, Dallas. Those are all on the roadmap for sure. So be on the lookout. And then we're really heads down focusing on licensing and empowering these young people to take this method out into the world and teach it. And it's just really cool now to be able to see that we have some young moms in the Midwest that are making extra income from teaching these classes that they otherwise weren't. We have some college students that are helping to pay off student debt already by teaching these classes. We have, just instructors from all different parts that are really taking this method and transforming it into what makes sense for their market and for their life. So I think that's what we're really super focused on, that and studio growth. We want to continue digital. And we want to continue apparel, but we really, most importantly, just want to stay really true to the values. So we're going to continue to hold ourselves accountable, ask the community for feedback, keep our ears to the ground. We don't want to grow too fast. We want to make sure that we're doing this the right and intentional way.
And if folks wanted to get in touch to learn more about the instructor training or just 305 in general, what's the best way to do that?
305fitness.com. You'll see right on the homepage, there's a button that says bring 305 to your city. Highly recommend it. It's a quick application. Our next instructor training is at the end of 2019 and early 2020. We'll be doing a ton. And then if you want to get in touch and just follow us on Instagram at 305 Fitness, and you can follow me at Sadie Kurzban.
That's awesome. Really enjoyed the conversation, Sadie. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. It's awesome to hear the success that you've built thus far, just built on authenticity and staying true to who you are. And I'm excited to see what comes next.
Oh, thank you so much. It was awesome to talk.
Thanks so much.